Well, Happy New Year. Welcome officially to 2024. This is the very first edition of the year for the Scene podcast with myself and my colleague Jimmie Tramel. I hope everyone had a pleasant New Year. Do I'm not one to go out and do things, so I don't know if Jimmie watched things drop or if you stayed up all night or are you
The only thing that dropped on New Year's for me was my eyelids. I mean, I don't go out with the crazies on New Year's Eve. I do watch the football games the following day though, so they were pretty good football games.
That's true, unless you were a fan of Texas or Alabama. But oh well, these things happen. So, well, what we've got coming up, the new year started out here at Tulsa with Hairspray. It opened at the PAC on January 2nd. We'll have a review of that coming up later this week in the Tulsa World, which is available at fine newsstands everywhere and at tulsaworld.com. For those who don't know, it is the musical adaptation of maybe the most, how best to put it, the least outrageous John Waters movie ever made. It's the only one of his films to earn a PG rating. Most of them are R and above or
Hmm.
so and but it does have it has and it's been even more I guess sanitized for the stage because it was a big hit on Broadway, won Tony Awards, ran for several years. And I think this is like maybe the second or the third time it's the touring company has come to Tulsa. So it's fun, it's uplifting, it sounds like the 1960s. People will love it. So speaking of things that sound like things in the past, this is the year when, or this is the time of the year when people look ahead to what movies are coming out. And I believe you have discovered a perhaps unusual trend this year in movies, Jimmie.
Yeah, I checked out the all the movies coming out in 2024, and if you're someone who likes nostalgia or finds comfort in the familiar, you will really dig the 2024 movie lineup. And granted, there are a ton of original films as well, as there are always going to be, but there's so many prequels, sequels, familiar characters, remakes, reimaginings, uh, just characters you've seen over and over again that are coming. I bet there's 30 or 40 of these type things that are coming to movie screens next year. And some I dig, some I don't. Um,
Right.
we
Well,
spoke.
I know that. Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
know that. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about how maybe the era of the superhero film has kind of passed because the ones that were released in 2023 kind of tanked, both critically and with audiences. Are are they trying to run up a new facets of the Marvel universe or
Well, it's interesting that there's part of the reason I think those movies tanked is I think there is some superhero fatigue out there, and you need to have a story, not just an action figure come to life. But the movies that have been released, no one seems to be clamoring for. I mean, is anybody out there dying to see uh, this or that movie that tanked? It's not the iconic characters that they're putting on
yeah,
screen. It's interesting that three of the movies that are superhero type movies coming out next year are Spider-Man villains or fringe characters. There's a Madame Web movie, very fringe character, barely mentioned in Spider-Man. And then there's another Venom movie. And then there's a Craven the Hunter movie, which is a Spider-Man villain. So, are people clamoring for these movies? I mean, they seem like unless it's a great story, it seems like a stretch.
yeah, that's yeah, yeah. There's so many times you can go to that well and come up with something that really resonates with people. I mean, after all of the, well, what was the big blockbuster for you? The Endgame, Avengers Endgame, where you kind of, drove a nail into the arc of that story, so you have to start building up from scratch in a way. Well, of the movies that are coming out, what are some of the ones that are there any that you think actually make you go, this might be worth seeing, even though it is a prequel, sequel, continuation, whatever?
Well, one of them is a remake, and it has a real chance to be cheesy, I think. But if you know that going in, it's probably okay. And I was a huge Lee Majors fan as a kid. Loved the $6 Million Man. Changed my life, maybe. It got me out of Little League Baseball. The games were on the same night as $6 Million Man. I said, I choose the $6 Million Man. I'm out of baseball. But after the $6 Million Man, you had The Fall Guy, the Stuntman TV series. And we have a Fall Guy movie coming out in 2024 with Ryan Gosling as
Okay.
as the stuntman and Emily Blunt as kind of his female foil, for lack of a better word. And Lee Majors will be in it, I've read.
Okay.
No, will Heather Thomas be in it? I have no idea. And so to me, for nostalgia's sake, that could be interesting. I'm
Yeah.
not expecting it to win the Academy Award, but I do expect it to be entertaining.
Well, and did you say, was it Ryan Gosling or Ryan Reynolds?
Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Okay. Well, after Ken, after the Barbie movie, he can bring off that kind of I kind of knowing wink at the camera that was kind of a thing about the Fall Guy. I mean, it was as much a comedy as it was an action
Sure.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
what are some of the ones that have you shaking your head with what were they thinking?
well, they're going to redo Roadhouse without Patrick Swayze, of course, which seems like that's a step in the wrong direction. To me, maybe it'll be great, but to me, Patrick Swayze was the heart of the movie. And no matter who you put in that role, it's not going to be the same as Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
Here,
And any other ones that
um, there's an Alien prequel. That's prequel and sequel that's coming, which sounds interesting because the movie is set between Alien in 1979 and Aliens in 1986.
okay.
So, what interesting story there is to tell in between, I don't know, but at least that seems creative to me that you're placing it between those two movies. Um, they're Universal's getting back in the monster business. They've
Oh
got
my
an
goodness.
untitled monster movie coming out this year that's presumably going to be something like Dracula's Daughter, but inspired by it. And also they have a Wolfman movie coming out later this year. So I love I love the Universal black and white monster movies.
Oh
So I
yeah.
like the fact they're getting back in that business, and maybe it'll be good stuff. Of course, Mean Girls, the remake comes out next week,
My
but
goodness.
that's based on the musical version of the original movie. So it just seems like maybe just to be cycling itself.
And if I remember correctly, Mean Girls, I'll have to check that now. That is coming back to um, Celebrity Attractions is bringing, yeah, um, February 25th,
Hmm.
24th, and the 25th. They're doing it as a bonus. It's just a three-show run. But yeah, the musical is actually going to be here probably perhaps while the movie is
Yeah. Well,
still running.
here are two movies you maybe never thought we'd get a sequel to.
Okay.
Beetlejuice 2, we're getting this year. Who would have guessed that? And also a sequel to Gladiator from 24 years ago now.
Yeah.
The long, 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 long ago remake is Nosferatu, which comes
Oh my
out,
goodness.
strangely enough, on Christmas Day,
On
2020.
Christmas Day.
But the remake has been tried once before in 1979, but
Right.
the original obviously is a classic.
1922. Well, and there was also, and I can't remember the title of it. Oh, darn it. But there was a movie about the making of the original Nosferatu with Willem Dafoe as the character who plays
Yeah.
the vampire. And the conceit of that movie was that they actually found a vampire.
Yeah, he was really a vampire,
He was
right?
really a
Yeah.
vampire. And I remember it being just a fascinating kind of metafictional kind of take on the whole thing.
And
But
here's the sequel that'll get Oklahoma's attention is Twisters. Uh, that's coming out this year, the follow-up to Twister. And
okay.
both were filmed, to some degree in Oklahoma.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully for as someone who has seen what strong winds could do up close, I hope the Twisters are confined to the movie house this year, rather than coming sweeping up the plains. But we'll leave that at that. So,
Hey,
um,
you mentioned something about the Marvel movies and all that stuff.
right.
That I'll segue us into something else. Oh, I forgot Deadpool 3 is coming out next year and a Joker sequel, but never mind that. You said
Okay.
the you said the recent superhero movies were not were box office bombs, didn't do great at the box office. They all maybe run together and uh the new Marvel series Echo, which I'm writing about Sunday and debuts January 9th, is the opposite of all these cosmic, galactic, time traveling epics. It's a grounded, set in Oklahoma story that's very personal and very gritty. And I think people are going to love this series, Echo.
How many is it an ongoing series, or is it a limited series, or
It's a limited series, and they're going to drop all the episodes on the same day, January the 9th.
okay? And what's the streaming service?
It'll be Disney Plus and
Okay.
Hulu, but
Okay.
it's basically uh, deaf, amputee, indigenous female character, Echo, who is certainly not, she's the opposite of vulnerable, despite being an amputee. She was once part of the Kingpin's crime empire in New York City, but she goes back to her Oklahoma roots. And when she does, of course, trouble is going to follow. So basically, the Marvel war, comes to Oklahoma.
Okay. Um, and I guess given the tenor of the times, they made use of as much indigenous talent in front of on both sides of the screen.
It was a priority. Uh, just like Reservation Dogs, they had representation in front of and behind the camera. And before the series ever got off the ground, uh, the filmmakers made a decision to go to the Choctaw Nation and say, here's what we're thinking. We want your permission. We want your input so this can be authentic. It wasn't just a matter of, yeah, we're doing this. We don't care what you say. We're going full speed ahead. They worked with the Choctaw Nation every step of the way.
Right. And that you said that drops January 9.
January the 9th.
All right. Something to look forward to that might give us hope for the future. Who knows? All right. Well, I think that'll do for this week's podcast. We want to thank you all for sticking around with us. Hope we have been, if not entertaining, at least informative, and we will see you again very soon.
Behave.